So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to the iPhone 6s Plus versus the iPhone 7 Plus jet black here versus the iPhone 8 Plus, the newest big phablet you can buy from Apple. And the iPhone 10's coming, but that's more of a smaller phone with a big screen in the body, so that would be closer to the iPhone 8 in size. This is closer to the rumored iPhone 10 Plus that should be coming next year, or 11, whatever they're going to call it. We should be seeing a larger variant of that all-screen design phone this year. But I have this video here because I want to help you break this decision down. These phablets you can buy right now at Apple, and it's kind of confusing. I mean, Apple's got so many smartphones here, but let's begin by talking about the specifications that matter with each of them. And I'm not going to talk too long about these. They are loaded with specs here, but the iPhone 6s Plus, first of all three of these come with a 5.5-inch 1080p Retina HD display. They all have the same pixels per inch, 401 PPI. They're all slightly different calibrated, but overall they're about the same in the screen across all of these devices. Now, the iPhone 6s Plus does have an Apple A9 CPU. That's the same one that's in the iPhone 6s. It also does give you 3D Touch. It gives you a second-gen Touch ID. It doesn't give you lifestyle water-resistant features that allow you to get this phone a little bit wet. That's reserved for the iPhone 7 and up. And this is a 12 megapixel camera here that shoots in up to 4K 30 frames per second. So this is pretty well loaded with the features you would want here, even today in 2017. Now, all three of these do run the iOS 11 version, so they're all on the current software. No matter which one you were to buy, you would be getting current software here. Now, the iPhone 7 Plus gives you an Apple A10 CPU that's a Fusion quad core that runs on 4 cores, sometimes on 4. Most of the time, it's in its dual core capacity anyway. Now, the iPhone 7 Plus also gives you a second-gen Touch ID. That's a capacitive button that's new here for the 7. So if you get the 7, you get the more MacBook trackpad-like button here on your iPhone, which does lend to feeling a little bit more premium. There is more haptic feedback throughout the UI, like when you pull down the notification tray, sometimes you feel a little bit of taptic feedback, stuff like that. Also, the iPhone 7 Plus gives you the first for an iPhone, a dual camera setup. Portrait mode does make its way here, which allows you to get a bokeh effect or blur the background on your iPhone. And the 7 Plus also gives you, I would say, a little bit more RAM at 3 gigabytes of RAM versus 2 gigabytes of RAM over there on the 6s Plus. Now, the iPhone 8 Plus does give you an Apple A11 Bionic chipset. This does have also 3 gigs of RAM, just like the 7 Plus. 5.5-inch. You do get the True Tone display here, which you don't get on the iPhone 7 Plus or 6s Plus. And you also do get a dual camera that has been updated slightly over the 7 Plus, slightly tweaked for better saturation and also better color accuracy in its photos. This also is a first for an iPhone. This gives you the 4K at 60 frames per second. So the iPhone 8 Plus also gives you a glass design. You don't get that on these two. Both the iPhone 7 Plus and 6s Plus do give you about the same design when it comes to their build and materials. Here you get a glass design, but the iPhone 8 Plus is heavier here. Okay, guys, so let's talk about their designs now. So if you sandwich all of these devices together, they're basically the same device. I mean, picking any one of these up, you're not going to feel like there's any difference at all here between them. Now, the 8 Plus does differentiate itself in that it feels like a much heavier device. So I do actually don't like that the iPhone 8 Plus feels much heavier than the prior 7 Plus and 6s Plus. So if you do like that weightier feel, though, you will appreciate the iPhone 8 Plus over all of these phones, although it is going to be a little bit more of a premium when it comes to the price point, but well worth it if you want your phone to feel like the most premium device you can buy. But overall, I mean, in terms of thickness, they're about the same on all of them. You're not going to notice really any different. I'm sure they're slightly different if you look at the specs up close. You do get a headphone jack here on the 6s Plus. The 7 Plus removes it, and the 8 Plus doesn't bring it back. So if you like headphone jacks and you want a big iPhone, the iPhone 6s Plus is really the only way to go here. Also, the iPhone 6s Plus gives you that home button. You see that lag is happening right now on camera. See that lag right there on the iPhone 8 Plus? This has to do with iOS 11. So iOS 11 is a little bit choppy. You can just see the difference. Look at the difference on both of those phones right there. Even the 8 Plus does have lag. So iOS 11 is not a stable operating system, but that just happened live on camera, so I had to point that out right now. But the iPhone 6s Plus does give you the click home button. So if you do like that click pressure button, you're going to love the iPhone 6s Plus over both of these. I don't know who really does appreciate that more than capacitive. I never really cared too much for it. Okay, guys, so discussing the displays a little bit more, I find that the iPhone 6s Plus, even here in 2017, has a pretty solid display, 401 pixels per inch. But what's different here between these three is that the iPhone 7 Plus gets a little bit better when it comes to its color accuracy. It gets a little bit brighter. And overall, the contrast ratio is just better than on the iPhone 6s Plus. So if you decide to go with the 7 Plus, you're getting a better screen here. The iPhone 6s Plus, though, is still really amazing on its display. The iPhone 8 Plus is kind of confusing. It doesn't really offer that much more other than the True Tone. So, they market it like this is a much better phone, but in reality, the display on the iPhone 8 Plus is just slightly warmer than these two right here. These give you cooler displays, and it does have True Tone. So other than that, it's about the same display as well. So overall, display quality on all of them is really well calibrated. iPhones are some of the best calibrated displays on the market. All of them get bright. I don't think they're as good as OLED displays here, but if you were picking up one of these guys right now, rest assured, unless you're putting them side by side, you're basically getting the same display on all of them. And I got experience with all of them. Now, I would choose, if it was me personally, the 8 Plus over both of these, just because True Tone does make a difference in adjusting to your lighting conditions, keeping the display looking very nice to the eyes in pretty much any lighting condition. So I do think that is a useful feature on the 8 Plus, but I tend to read a lot on my phone. If you don't read a lot on your phone, it's not really going to make a big difference. Okay, guys, so let's touch upon software here. Now, you've seen earlier the little bit of lag. I kind of cut the section of the video I was talking about off just to talk about that lag because it happened here live on camera with the iPhone 8 Plus. This actually happens to pretty much every one of the iPhones that I have tested so far when it comes to the larger ones, at least. And that's due to iOS 11. It's still not fully optimized. My iPhone 8 Plus is running iOS 11.03. My 7 Plus is running iOS 11.1 beta 4. So the 7 Plus is smoother and it will get better over time. But if you get any of these devices, you're getting the same exact software pretty much on all of them. I don't really see any differences between any of them. And using these day to day, like I say, just like the displays and design, it's basically the same exact experience. All right, guys, so let's get into a section between these three iPhones that actually does make a difference between all three of them. They're slightly different in this area. So on the rear, we talked about earlier with the iPhone 6s Plus, it's 12 megapixel 4K camera. Now this thing is pretty fantastic, and by no means is this a bad camera. These two are better, but even here in 2017, using the 6s Plus's camera can still produce professional content. So I do think that this camera is still fantastic because it's 4K. Now also, this can shoot very neutral colors, so this is not going to give you very vibrant pictures here on the 6s Plus. It's going to give you more of I would say a Canon-like picture. So I have a Canon over here, and I think that it actually produces pictures that are very similar to what I get from my Canon camera in comparison to, like, I would say, Samsung, which gives me more of a punchier, saturated photo. Now, the iPhone 7 Plus does a very similar job to the iPhone 6s Plus when it comes to the camera, although it adds the portrait depth effect. And I think overall, it just looks like a brighter photo than the 6s Plus. So the iPhone 7 Plus is a better all-around camera. It punches up the saturation slightly over the 6s Plus, but it produces a very neutral palette color as well. And also, I think that its video recording looks slightly better on the 7 Plus over the 6s Plus as well. It's a faster shutter as well. So overall, this phone here does have a nicely improved camera over the iPhone 6s Plus. If you were buying it though, unless you're using it like professionally, I don't think you're gonna tell like for everyday pics that much over the iPhone 6s Plus. But the iPhone 8 Plus, I think, actually improves quite well over both those two, and I'll tell you why. The 4K 60 is an extremely smooth video format, much smoother than both of these guys right here, and it definitely is noticeable. You could check out my 4K 60 sample I did with this phone here. It was fantastically smooth. I will drop it in the comments section. Also, the camera on the iPhone 8 Plus does punch up the saturation and looks a little bit closer, I would say, to Samsung photos, but still maintaining that nicely calibrated look that we like from our iPhone photos. So overall, I think this might be the best camera on any smartphone on the market right now. Well, at least until I test the Google Pixel 2, maybe the Huawei Mate 10. But in terms of iPhone, Samsung versus those two, I think this actually has an edge over the S8 and the Note 8. For people who want more, I would say accurate professional pictures. Now, if you do want to just post to social, you don't want to do no editing, I still think Samsung wins there. But overall, between these three, the 8 Plus is a clear win. So if you're looking for the best camera, just skip these two out and just go ahead and get yourself an iPhone 8 Plus. All right, guys, so let's get into their battery lives on each one of these devices. So of course, this is an iPhone, so all of them are sealed within the body here. Now, the iPhone 6s Plus does give you a 2750 milliamp hour battery, and this one actually I had a little bit of troubles with. I think it's because I have the Samsung chip. There was chipgate with the iPhone 6s where you might get a Samsung version or a TSMC version. Unfortunately, I did pick up the Samsung version, so the battery life was worse than what I see on my TSMC iPhone, so I can't really speak for those phones, but overall, I'm getting probably 3 to 4 hours on screen time with this one. Now, the iPhone 7 Plus, though, on the other hand, was an extremely fantastic upgrade for me. TSMC processor in this one, I was getting like 5 to 6 hours on screen time. Now, the 8 Plus actually takes that up a little bit further, and I get like about 7 to 8 hours on screen time with this guy. So the iPhone 8 Plus, even though this has a 2691 milliamp hour battery, down from even the 6s Plus and way down from the iPhone 7 Plus at 2900 milliamp hours, the iPhone 8 Plus is actually the best battery life device of all three of these, and by a pretty good long shot. I think it's, I would say, at least an hour more runtime than I had on my iPhone 7 Plus. So if you're looking for the battery champ here, it's the iPhone 8 Plus. All three of these do deliver fantastic battery life, though. Unfortunately, like I said, I didn't have the best experience on my iPhone 6s Plus, but it still was not bad battery life. It's still better than any of the smaller iPhones. So all of these do deliver pretty stellar battery life. If you ask me, I would still really think about hardly getting the iPhone 8 Plus if you want the best battery life of the phablet lineup right now. All right, guys, so let's talk about a section I think a lot of us care about, and that is the performance. A9, A10, A11. Apple has actually made leaps and bounds when it comes to the performance, but you wouldn't notice it in day-to-day use. I mean, coming to any of these phones, I actually missed the tap like 3 times there. Coming to any of these phones here, they are extremely quick, and this is probably due to Apple's optimization. It's just like how you can buy an iMac with 8 gigs of RAM, and it runs like some Windows computers with 16 gigs of RAM. So basically what I mean by this is that if you're not doing anything like, I would say, video rendering. So video rendering, the iPhone 8 Plus will just chew these phones alive. So if you do videos on your phone, you're going to just kill these phones with the iPhone 8 Plus. So get that phone if you want to do that heavy stuff. If you're going to be doing gaming, and I mean games that really require the processor power, so Infinity Blade, stuff like that, with more, it takes more space to download and also requires more graphical prowess, go with the iPhone 8 Plus. The 7 Plus, you know, go with them in order. So if the iPhone 8 Plus is out of your budget, go with the iPhone 7 Plus over the 6s Plus for this performance area. Now, the 3D Touch is actually a little bit faster on the 7 Plus than the iPhone 6s Plus, and a little bit faster on the 8 Plus than the 7 Plus. So, you know, it's very slight though. You know, side by side, you can see this. Running these day to day, I am really shocked to say that, not shocked, but I am really impressed by how well the iPhone 6s Plus has held up. It actually doesn't even feel like it's an old phone. If you bought this phone, it feels just as current as both of these phones. And I think that's probably why Apple still sells this device in their lineup. All three of these give you stellar performance. None of them are going to be life-changing when it comes to the performance, unless, of course, you run a business, for example, on your iPhone 8 Plus, and you really need that video editing power, and you don't have a computer. This phone definitely is worth it over these two. But other than that, gaming, if that's all you do, still this phone is worth it over these two. But all three of them still perform exceptionally well here in 2017. And I don't think that's the major deciding factor here. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and get onto audio, speaker performance, quality, stuff like that, and calling. So the iPhone 6s Plus doesn't have dual speakers like the 7 Plus and the 8 Plus, but what it does trade for that is an audio jack. Now, this headphone jack on the 6s Plus is not the best in the industry. It doesn't have a high quality DAC like LG V series phones have, like the V30, or, you know, even some older LG phones that had that, but it's still, you know, it's still a headphone jack, but you trade the speakers on the front. Now, I honestly don't see as many people walking around playing speakerphone more than I see people walking around with their headphones. So I do think that's still a very useful feature here, and it's really the only option of these phablets here in 2017. If you want an iPhone with a headphone jack and you want a big iPhone, the 6s Plus is your choice right now. It's still going to be a stellar phone for the next few years. Now, the iPhone 7 Plus here, I think is a better phone calling experience. I actually found the callers to sound a little bit deeper, a little bit crisper when talking to people on the phone. Now, the iPhone 8 Plus I found to have better speakers than both of these phones when it comes to its clarity, richness, and bass and stuff like that. So if you do like to listen to music out of your phone, the iPhone 8 Plus is the way to go between these three. And if you do like to listen to people on speakerphone when you're talking to them, this phone beats both of these hands down. So that's how I would choose these phones if I was you. If you want the best call quality, I think it might be a toss-up between the iPhone 8 Plus and iPhone 7 Plus. If you want the headphone jack, it's going to be the iPhone 6s Plus easily. And if you want the best sounding front-facing speakers, it's the iPhone 8 Plus. Now, if you want kind of the best of both worlds, you kind of don't get that with any of these. So you got to really pick and choose here. All right, guys, so let's wrap this up here by talking about the price in each of these phones and which one I think you should go with here in 2017. This is late 2017. iPhone 6s Plus is going to run you $549 for a 32 gigabyte. You got 4 different color options: space gray, rose gold. You also got gold and silver, which I'm showing you here. You go up to $649 to get yourself the 128 gigabyte. It's a fantastic value still. I would recommend you pick this one up if you're really into the headphone jack. You really don't care about having the latest design and you want pretty much all the new features of the new iPhones, but you don't care about having those slight improvements like True Tone. You don't care about having, front-facing speakers, or you don't care about getting your phone wet. That's not a big deal to you. And you're not a portrait photographer. You could save some bucks and get yourself a 6s Plus. I would go with that one if that's you. Also, I would recommend getting this one on the used market. You can find it used, refurbished, or at third-party websites that should sell this thing for less than what Apple is charging. That's true except for the 8 Plus, which is the same price pretty much everywhere as it is for Apple. Now, the iPhone 7 Plus does start now at $669, so it's almost $700 to start for a 32 gig. Again, I think that's a weak value. I don't like 32 gig iPhones, especially when you're paying over $600. Go up 100 and get the 769 version. But here's where it gets tricky. The iPhone 7 Plus, the model you actually want, gives you 128 gigs. The iPhone 8 Plus, $799, gives you 64 gigs, but it gives you the new phone. With the new Apple file system, what they're not telling you is how much smaller file space is on the newer iPhone. So, it is a big difference still, because the iPhone 7 Plus still gets the new Apple file system and has more storage. So in practice, it still will last longer than a 64 gig iPhone. However, I think, most people could get by with an iPhone 8 Plus with 64 gigs. So if it was between these two, I would choose the iPhone 8 Plus just because it's slightly more for a model that has more than the base storage iPhone 7 Plus, and you get a much faster phone for the long term here. Now, overall, day to day, if you just want a phone that, does pretty much everything that the iPhone 10 is going to do, the iPhone 8 Plus does, then you might want to choose the 7 Plus if you want options like rose gold, jet black. You're not going to get those in these guys. And I should mention a crucial point here. If you do want a lighter phone, get your iPhone 7 Plus. You're going to be happier than these two. Specifically, the jet black actually feels lighter than both the aluminum and the glass builds here on these guys. So anyway, that's it here. That's how I would choose these. Now, if you want a direct answer from Nick himself, I'm going to give you my answer. The 8 Plus is the one I would go with. They're all up around $600-700. Why not pay an extra $100 and get the best processor you can in a phone? The Galaxy Note 8 starting at $930 is already $230 more than an iPhone 8 Plus. So the iPhone 8 Plus is a pretty good steal for the power you get for the price you pay here in late 2017. It's not that much more than last year's 7 Plus. Nick here, helping you to master your technology. If you found this video helpful, enjoyable, do me a favor, click that like button for me. And if you're new here, consider subscribing for more. I will catch you all in the next one. Be sure to be well and peace.